Well, good morning, everybody. It's been a very busy week, certainly for me. Doing live chats with let's put them in the right order. Last week, I had the pleasure of the company of Chad Keller, Andrew Whitehead, Eric Cozy, the dude himself, Derek Edmund, and of course Millbilly. And starting off with Millbilly. Well, I'd like to thank obviously all of them for coming along and doing a chat. One of the things that I wonder about, particularly having watched the Millbilly video and the phone call between Stephen Avery and Steve Glynn, is the question on everybody's mind, which is, why did Steve have to settle for a paltry $400,000? But for me, the bigger question is, why would Steve Glynn and Walt Kelly settle for just $160,000 of that for getting Steve out? That's 40% of the 400,000. But what's 40% of? Well, let's be conservative. Let's say Steve was going to get between 5 and 6 million. 40% of 36 million, they could have retired. But even 33 to 40% of 5 to 6 million. Why did they feel so pressured, threatened, and scared to have to settle for such a low figure? That's always made me wonder. And listening to the interview with Emily Matesic, whatever her name is, kind of inspired me and a few other guys to come up with in effect, a list of inconsistencies. If Stephen Avery had killed Teresa, how would things be different? So I'm planning to do a live chat later on this evening with at least one of our Australian friends and possibly others from around the world. So watch out for that. That'll be later on Greenwich Mean Time, about 10 o'clock, just after The Apprentice. I couldn't possibly miss The Apprentice. Still disappointed that Tom went, and looking forward to Lottie getting the boot at some point. There's no I in Team Lottie. Anyway, that's mainly British people would understand what I'm on about there. And of course, one has to also look at inconsistencies. If Luke Mitchell had killed Jodie Jones, there would have been, again, quite a different scenario. There would have been tiny droplets of blood on Luke Mitchell had he been the one that had killed his girlfriend, and various other things as well that are not right about that conviction. And of course, Derek went to the same school as Luke Mitchell and Jodie Jones, and is well aware of the feelings within the community. Now, Eric Cozy did an interesting video last night looking at the blood. And he mentioned about the fact that Kathleen Zellner thinks that it wasn't law enforcement that planted the blood. I would tend to agree on the basis that in order to get into the caravan, into Steve's trailer, surely one would have to be familiar with Bear, and Bear would have to be familiar with them. But that doesn't alter the fact that, of course, both the murder and the framing could quite easily have been done on Manitrock Sheriff's Department's orders, or at least the orders of their retired sheriff. Now, looking at Andrew's video, follow-up video, he made a very, very interesting point, didn't he, about the car seat. Steve, I believe, is about 5'5", 5'6", And I do know that, for example, every time I get in my wife's car, the seat is a mile back because she pushes it way back in order to get out. I don't think blokes tend to do that, but you know, in order to either push the seat forward or push the seat back, because Steve would have had to have done that, there would be his DNA on the lever there. Not just Hoodlatch DNA, but there would be Ken Kratz's sweat DNA on the lever. So it'll be interesting if when Kathleen Zellner gets hold of the car to find out whose DNA is on the lever, if there is some besides Teresa's. One of the things I particularly liked about talking with Millbilly was that he was able to point out that he has been following the framing of Stephen Avery right from the very beginning, right from when the case first blew up in 2005. I like the fact that there ain't no guilters going to be able to say to Millbilly, "Oh, you've just watched a documentary. You've just been duped by Netflix." Not that any of us have, but as I say, to have that kind of history in the case. And as he was saying, it's just got to the stage now where he's being able to be given the platform, if you like, to explain and to show us things, and made a very good point about the fact that he's quite happy to disseminate information with as many people as he possibly can. And boy, have him and some of his acquaintances delved into the case big time. Last night, decided to watch the Ryan Ferguson film Dream Killer. I'm reminded of a quote by often attributed to the police, that when they get on the witness stand, they testify, they swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing like the truth. And I do have a certain sympathy with police and law enforcement, in that maybe at times they are a little bit economical with the truth, because as we know, witnesses lie. I'm reminded of the song by Madness. Oh, what fun we had, but at the time it seemed so bad. All we learnt at school was how to bend, not break the rules. And it just seemed to me, watching The Dream Killer, that we had another prosecutor in Kevin Crane, very similar to Jim Harding. They have just pushed and bent the rules so far that they have completely broken the rules in order to secure a false conviction. And how do they get rewarded for their corruption? They get made into judges. It just beggars belief, doesn't it? Whilst watching with Eunice, I did make occasional comments, knowing full well the outcome of the case, knowing full well about it. But it's good to watch it from the actual footage. But I did make occasional comments about how poor the defence lawyer Charlie Rogers was, and I don't think there's any doubt that Ryan's dad Bill would have been a far better defence attorney for his son than Charlie Rogers. But of course, it got to the stage where everything was really going against Ryan, and I just happened to make the comment that this guy is doomed. This guy is in real trouble. And so I never let on to Eunice that I knew exactly what happened, and I just mentioned that he's going to need somebody really exceptional if he's going to ever defend himself on this one. well, you can imagine Eunice's delight when Kathleen Zellner took over. It was a nice surprise, because of course that was a name that everybody has heard. And finally, wasn't it interesting how we saw that Kathleen Zellner is well aware of how dirty and how corrupt the state can be. How, as I say, they don't just bend the rules, they break the rules, and they do deliberately so. And it is worrying, because when these prosecutors that have acted in that way, because the judges have allowed them to act that way, they then become judges themselves. And you know that the system is never going to change. I just hope that in the same way that the woman Linda from the Central Park Five, I can't remember her second name, Fair something, she was pilloried for her behaviour in the convicting of the Central Park Five. I hope that Kevin Crane gets the same sort of treatment. Well, just the exposure to his corruption is a very, very good thing. Prosecutorial immunity, wasn't it interesting? When we looked at Ken Kratz's civil suit, the decision by William Griesbach was that, no, you don't qualify for absolute immunity when you've been, doing what you've been doing, albeit you've been doing it as the District Attorney of Calumet County. William Griesbach described it as like an ink blot. It doesn't work its way backwards. So yeah, let's hope that Kevin Crane gets a taste of judgment some point in the future. Anyway, as I say, join me later tonight for a look at, well, as I say, amongst other things, the how things would have been so different. Emily Matassic. I can kind of see how journalists, they're interested in strap lines. So if she's told, we found Stephen Avery's blood in the RAV4, end of story, doesn't bother to investigate any further. Maybe it wasn't until it actually went to trial that people actually found out where the blood was found and in what places. And obviously now we're looking at the blood and saying, no. It would be in far, far more places. And there would be, at least somewhere, a bloody fingerprint. But whilst it's quite easy to plant somebody's DNA, and it's not too difficult, as we can see, to plant somebody's blood, planting fingerprints, just about impossible. Anyway, catch you later tonight, and looking forward to another chat. And once again, many thanks to all the guests last week. As I say, to C.H.A.D, Keller, to Andrew Whitehead, Eric Ose, to Derek Edmund, and Mill Billy. Thank you once again for you taking the time out to try and educate me and give us a bit more perspective. Okay, catch you again soon. Bye for now.